Hi Year 12s, welcome to the last of the YouTube clips. We're looking at longitude and time difference today. When the sun shines directly on a meridian or a line of longitude, it is exactly 12 o'clock noon. And in fact, meridian actually means midday in Latin. This means that it is midnight on the other side of the world. Now the Earth turns 360 degrees in 24 hours, or 15 degrees every hour, which means it's 1 degree every 4 minutes. Now this 15 degrees every hour is an important one. Okay, here's a map of the Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. We have our prime meridian down the middle at 0. Anything to the east of that is ahead of the UTC, and anything to the west of that is behind the UTC. So, for example, most of Europe and Australia are ahead of London, whereas North and South America are behind London. Okay, let's get into some examples. The first one here, the time in New York, USA, is 5 hours behind the UTC. What is the time in New York when it is 3 p.m. in London? So for this question here, all I need to do is 3 p.m. minus 5 hours, which gives me 10 a.m. Now, what line or what meridian of longitude passes through New York? We know that it's 5 hours behind the UTC, and we know that for every hour it is 15, the world turns 15 degrees. So we're going to go 5 times 15, which gives us 75 degrees. And it's west of the UTC, so therefore it is 75 degrees west of the UTC. And that's the answer to the second question, second part of that question. Okay, let's get on to some more complicated questions. So, in LA, USA, which is 119 degrees west, a tennis match is being played at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. Dave is watching the match live on TV in Sydney at 151 degrees east. What day and time is it in Sydney? I've got a little diagram here just to help you visualise it. We've got LA over here at 119 degrees west, and Sydney over here at 151 degrees east. Now, the first thing we need to do is calculate the difference in longitude. Because they're in different hemispheres, that means we need to add them together. So 119 plus 151 gives you 270 degrees. So there's a 270 degrees difference between the two cities. Now what we need to do is calculate the time. Remember I said before it's 15 degrees for every hour. We want to know how many hours difference between the two. So I'm going to do 270 divided by 15, which gives me 18 hours. Now Sydney is east of LA, so therefore Sydney is ahead of LA. So I need to do 2 p.m. plus the 18 hours. And that would give me a local Sydney time of 8 a.m. Now working with time can be a little bit tricky. What I did there is I broke the 18 down into 12 hours and 6 hours. So I did 2 p.m. plus 12, which gave me 2 a.m. And then I added 6 hours on, and that gave me 8 a.m. Now because we've gone past midnight, it must be Wednesday. So the time in Sydney would be 8 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Now you can see there's quite a few steps to these questions, so it's important that you write down everything that I've written here. So we started with finding the difference in longitude. We had to add them together because they were in different hemispheres. I then needed to calculate how much time difference there was between the two cities, and I did that by dividing the total amount of degrees by 15. I then remembered that Sydney was east of LA, so therefore Sydney must be ahead of LA, and then I added the times together. That's a tricky thing, so let's have a look at another example. Okay, when it is 9 p.m. in Mumbai, India, at 19 degrees north and 73 degrees east, what is the local time in Jakarta, Indonesia, at 6 degrees south and 106 degrees east? Now, when we're looking at this time, with finding time differences, we're only concerned with longitude. So we're only concerned with 73 degrees east and 106 degrees east. So we just ignore the whole north and south part. Remember from before, the first thing we need to do is find the difference in longitude. Now this time they're in the same hemisphere, so I'm going to subtract. So 106 minus 73, gives me 33 degrees. Next thing I need to do is the time, so I need to do 33 degrees divided by 15, which gives me 2.2. Now I need to convert that to hours and minutes, so I'm going to press my degrees, minutes, seconds button on my calculator, and that gives me 2 hours and 12 minutes. Now Jakarta is east of Mumbai, so Jakarta is ahead of Mumbai. So I'm going to do 9 p.m. plus 2 hours and 12 minutes. This is a bit easier to calculate this time, so it must be 12 p.m. Again, as you can see, there's lots of steps here, so it's really important that you don't forget any of those steps. Some people might try and do it all in their heads, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend you writing out all the steps. It'll also allow you to get full marks for those questions. One thing to note, in example 11, the one I did just above, the time in Jakarta would not actually be 11:12 p.m, but it would be 11 p.m. And that's because the world is divided into hourly time zones. However, in the following exam, in the textbook, we're going to ignore those and we're just going to calculate local times like we practiced above. Also, if you look at the UTC, you can see that the time differences and time zones are a lot more complicated than what is shown in the diagram that we looked at earlier today. Okay, in class today, you need to complete exercise 903, questions 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 10, 15 and 16. Now some of those are multi-choice, so they shouldn't take you too long. Over the weekend, make sure that you complete all of the set work from this week. We have a double lesson on Monday and I will be going over everything. I will be revising what we did this week, and I hope to complete everything to do with longitude and latitude on Monday, so Tuesday we can get on to the next topic. I hope that you guys have a good weekend and I will see you next week. Bye!